Good, whenever this is that you're watching this. Good morning, my time. Hope everybody is well. Not legal advice, and this is really not legal advice, but please like, subscribe, share, show to your pets. Again, these are very dog friendly, so please show it to your pets. Um, I kind of surprised, but my roommates suspect that I'm stealing kitchen utensils, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. Anyway, this morning, I've talked about Alpine GTII a whole bundle of times with JR and individually. And every time I talk about the procedural history, it is so confusing. I don't know if anybody understands it, including myself. So I figured, without going into too much detail about substance, which I think we're going to talk about Sunday night, JR and I kind of wanted to go again through the procedural history of Alpine so you understand where we are today. So, what happened backing up to the beginning, Alpine are scumbags. They get charged and penalized, and a bunch of action is taken against them up through 2022. About 40 times they're disciplined or have some type of punishment. And in 2022, again, they have an enforcement procedure in front of Finra, in front of the Finra hearing officers. And based upon the evidence that's presented, they're kicked out. So, in essence, a expulsion order is issued in early 2022, along with a cease and desist order. Now, here's the confusing part. So, even though a expulsion order is issued, so basically saying you're done, and even though a cease and desist order is issued saying you're stealing and ripping off customers, so you got to stop that, before that order is final, it has to go through FINRA's own internal appellate procedures. And unfortunately, FINRA, like everything else, is slow and incompetent, so it takes quite some time before it gets through those processes. And once it goes through those processes, then the party that's against whom the enforcement is directed can then take it up on appeal to the SEC. And based upon that outcome, they could then take it to federal court and have a hearing, complaint filed, challenging everything in federal court. So even though in early 2022 an order was issued, that has not made it all the way through FINRA and the SEC. So it's not technically final. So understand that part. So while this was pending, so after 2022 and after FINRA issued the expulsion order and the cease and desist order, later that year, Alpine filed a complaint, a civil complaint, challenging the constitutionality of FINRA's procedures. And that was sometime in late 2022. In about spring of 2023, while Alpine's complaint was pending and while the appeal of the expulsion order had not yet been completed, FINRA noted that there were thousands of violations of the cease and desist order. In light of that, they wanted to expedite the expulsion of Alpine. So they filed a procedure and sought to expel Alpine for violating the cease and desist order. And that was because it was a danger to the public. So they started that. And after they started that, that's when Alpine, now we're in 2023, went into court to block that expedited removal, because that expedited removal took the place of the appellate proceedings through FINRA and through the SEC of that original 2022 expulsion order. So the injunction was sought by Alpine, and it was turned down, but eventually it was granted by an appellate court. And that appeal is what is going on now, the appeal of that injunction. So, what happens if the injunction is denied? If the injunction is denied, then Finra could conceivably go back, complete its appellate processes of kicking out, expelling Alpine. It could also try to do something in the short term based upon violations of the cease and desist order. So that's what they will do if they win the appeal, if Finra wins the appeal. If Alpine wins the appeal, there's a lot of remedies that they could get. Could they have the original expulsion order thrown out if the court agrees that the procedures used by Finra are improper? Theoretically, they could, but there's a whole bunch of other remedies that might be thrown at their way. That's less than throwing out the expulsion order, but that could happen. And if that were the case, then Finra would have to go back and restart that enforcement proceeding again. So it wouldn't get Alpine off the hook, but it would delay the outcome. So that brings us to today, and we're waiting for Finra's brief, which will be filed probably this week in the appeal, where they're going to challenge Alpine's injunction stopping Finra from getting an expedited resolution. So obviously, I'll keep you apprised of that. But last but not least, and hopefully that is clear, I hope it's clear, that notwithstanding all that stuff, if Finra today wanted to shut down Alpine, they could. They could go into federal court. They could show the 35,000 violations that Finra asserts have been established. They could put on proof outside of the enforcement actions, and they could have a receiver or an equivalent installed to take over the business of Alpine and to put them out of business. And that could be done today. Today's Saturday. It could be done on Monday. They could go into court, they could get an order. It would take a little longer than a day, it might take a few hearings, it might be an appeal, but they could do it much more quickly than these enforcement proceedings. But that's a side issue. So I hope that helps explain the procedural status of the Alpine matter and how they got to the injunction stage where they're trying to block an expedited hearing expelling them. And again, we'll report on that. It's a very convoluted system. The FINRA SEC system is slow, much slower than the courts, and I think courts are slow. But that hopefully will set it in context. Hope that helps. If not, let me know and I'll try it again. But hopefully that does. Have a good day. See you tomorrow night.